It's a rainy spring night here in Toronto. What better time then than another episode of TOTHCARDS, where I read postcards from Alex Toth that I got through the years. Some letters too. I might even eventually get to some articles that he did. There's all kinds of material to go over. These are some of his works for people who don't know him. This is a book setting the standard. It was his earlier comics, Standard Comics. And a reprint of all kinds of fantastic art he did. He worked in a much tighter style earlier. I think he inked it in a more tighter style. Still beautiful work. And I think he used, he said, I think I remember him writing that he used kind of similar to rapidograph pens, technical pens that he filed down and did this inking with. It's a lot tighter and kind of more control, but still has all his graphic hallmarks. Although later he got into using markers, and then he loosened up his style, made it even more graphic and punchy. I could say a lot about his work, but right now I'm going to just do the intro bit. This is just to introduce to people who might not have seen his work, and then I'll read my postcard. This is his own self-written Bravo for Adventure, featuring this character, Jesse Bravo, an Errol Flynn kind of character. Errol Flynn was, of course, a famous movie star in the earlier days of Hollywood, action, adventure, swashbuckler type guy. And this was published by IDW. This is, of course, a sort of reprinting of him later, repackaging, very nicely done. And hey, even includes, that's a drawing he did for me at the Toronto Convention in 1986. And they took out their dedication to me, which is fine, you know. Anyway, it's not about me. It's about this great work, this great artist, Alex Toth, so inspiring. And I won't stop talking about him, even if I go on the draw stream of Ethan's not draw stream, Ethan Van Sciver's stream. The people in the chat were ribbing me that I'm like the one-note wonder, always talking about Alex Toth. But really, great work like this, you can never get tired of it. At least I don't. I find new things in it every time I look at it. And other people have said quite rightly, you know, it's not perfect. There are flaws. There are things that he didn't do as well as other things. But on balance, he's regarded as the artist's artist. And he wrote and drew all this, lettered it, did the whole thing. Fantastic lighting. Look at that lighting. Graphic balance, action. So there's that. I've got my little set here. It's a little bit like The Friendly Giant, which older listeners will know was that TV show. It was a Canadian show, I think, where the giant would come in and adjust his fireplace. Used to love it as a kid. So this is my little friendly giant Alex Toth fireplace. He'd probably laugh. Here's Mozart. It's a little sculpture of Mozart for everybody. See, it's a great drawing reference. I might mention it every time I do a video. Here's Mr. Skull. Gotta know it, or I'll chide you. And here's a nice little house. What are these called? There's a whole collectible series of these. They're British. Very cool little cottage. Great for practicing 3D drawing and getting ideas. Although it's got cat hair on it. You know, this cat, Winston, he gets everywhere. And here's my little balsa wood rib cage. I think Alex would approve. All right, postcard. So I started reading them, but of course, I didn't organize it. I just went off sort of half planned. And so I didn't really organize them all. And I still haven't, but I have looked a little more carefully at the dates. And this one, I'm going to go back to the beginning and try and go through them sequentially, although not perfectly. I might jump around. I think the one I did before this was from 1998, so this is from 10 years before, 88. The earliest letters and postcards I have from were about 1984 and 1985. So this is June 20th, 1988. And I had a studio down in Toronto in the industrial area. It's now become even more developed. 67 Mowat Avenue, number 349. I'm not there anymore, but long ago, far away, I rented a separate office. Now I just work out of my apartment like a lot of us do. All right, so 20th June 1988. Dear Paul, nice hearing from you, kiddo. Yes, I've got some pages left. So name your poison, Hoss. I guess that's short for horse, like Hoss. I must have written him asking him to buy more pages because in '86, when he came to Toronto, I might have, in my senility, maybe if I'm repeating my stories, I can't remember. He came to the Toronto Convention in 1986, I think it was, and did sketches. Where that sketch was from, I just showed. And I went to his hotel room and bought a page from Challengers of the Unknown. It was a pencil page that was later inked by Frank Giacoia on vellum overlay. And I bought it simply because I remember thinking to myself, I won't really see his pencils very often. This is pre-internet, of course. So I want to get this pencil drawing page and just study that, which I did. He'd done it in a big, thick, chunky pencil like this. And, I should pull that out and do a separate video. Notes to self. Makes note to self. Toth pencil video. Okay, see? You're with me right here. Might as well be live streaming. So he pulled out this, but the point of my little digression there is he pulled out this beautiful zip portfolio and he had like just a chunk of these pages of all kinds of things. I don't remember exactly now, but the stuff you would drool over, probably like ink pages from all the DC things. And I think the prices back then were just ridiculous, like maybe $50 a page. I don't remember. But of course, back then to me, I was in my 20s. It was like, that seemed like a lot of money. I think I spent $50 or $100 buying the page from him. It was maybe 100. I can't remember. It wasn't much more than that. And now, as I was saying to someone the other day or thinking, maybe I said it in the other video, if I just, I said it in one of my other videos, doofus, if I'd just gone and bought them all, I'd just get a bank loan. But I didn't think that way back then. Anyway, onwards. I was asking about pages, and I guess he just said to tell him which one I wanted. I never did follow up, and again, an idiot thing, and I didn't buy more pages from him. Is John still publishing? He means John Biernat, who's passed away, I believe, but he was the guy who ran the Dragon Lady comic shop here in Toronto, and he had all kinds of memorabilia and old comics, of course, and even published Dragon Lady comics that Alex Toth did some covers for. And he's talking about John here. He says, he's got lots of my covers and a foreword, Milton Caniff's too, for the 2 Patsy books, if he gets them out. Did Dave DeRigo quit or stay on? Let me know what's what. Spelled in his own unique way, what's what, with Z's. Dave's not written for months. I don't expect hearing from John, but hope you'll receive my gratis, that means free, copies of all books with my covers, etc. Dunno just when my Zorro paperback and hardcovers will debut. Should be quite soon, I think. I've also colored 2 covers for Eclipse's upcoming Merchants of Death series, both of which got busier than intended, as you'll see. I toss clutter in by the shovelful. Unlike my Zorro art, new covers and tip-in plate. Oh well. And see, there's a clue to his nature, which probably like a lot of us artists or writers or creatives, speaking of creatives, in quotes, we're very self-critical and perfectionists. And he really was. Like he said, he was a lifelong student. He meant it. He's always trying to improve. And he was always very self-critical. Just striving to find those new avenues of improvement. So here he's talking about that he made the covers busier than he wanted. And that can happen if you don't draw for a while. And I'm not speaking for him because I really don't know, but from my own experience, if you don't have at it every day and just keep sharp, you can get rusty. And then when you go back in, your old habits can seep back in, kind of like add in too much detail if you're not quite sure what to do. So maybe he did a bit of that and he was noticing it. It's like when something nags at you and you're thinking, that could be better, but I don't know what. And then he said, someone, perhaps Dave Stevens, gave me a collection of the CP, he means Cartoonist Profiles, which is a sort of a fanzine about cartoonists. A collection of the Cartoonist Profiles Roy Crane scrapbook pages and notes, but I've no idea where it is in my funny old house. So, ? And he says, I did a DC cover for issue 616 of Action Comics. I don't know what that says. Willie Blackhawk, with Blackhawk? Maybe Willie, I don't know. Blackhawk, so far, though I'm told it was well received. No further requests for more. Same old dumb DC hurry up and wait silliness. Nonsense! Exclamation. And they owe me $50 for my color guide, voucher screw up, etc. Damn. Wrote Frank Robbins, famous Frank Robbins cartoonist, Johnny Hazard and lots of other stuff, DC Comics, writer, artist. Wrote Frank Robbins in Mexico about Milt Caniff's passing on Easter Sunday and Mrs. Caniff's on 11th of May. And Steve Canyon, he means the comic strip Steve Canyon. I'm filling in for people that maybe younger artists or people listening may not know all these details of what he's talking about. And Canyon's fini, meaning final episode, 5 June. He'd caught NBC TV's 15-second news bit by satellite and Time Magazine's 2-paragraph obituary 2 weeks later. So much for a 60-year career, but hadn't heard of Noel Sickles' death 5 years ago. He asked of him, and I had to tell him. So he's talking about when he wrote Frank Robbins back, I guess. So he had to tell him about Noel Sickles having died 5 years before this. So I guess that would be 1983. End of that whole school. Those are all the great early guys that established comics in this kind of style of dramatic lighting, action, adventure, strip matter, comic strips. End of that whole school. And next we go to continued. That whole school of adventure strip styling art in syndication, a subject I wrote about for TCJ, that's the Comic Journal's upcoming Caniff tribute issue. Frank, meaning Frank Robbins again, Frank's lost sight in one eye, is 70, paints daily. Apparently he retired to New Mexico, or is it Mexico or New Mexico? In Mexico. Paints daily, as does his wife, and is a happy emigre down there. Very positive, active, in a colony of U.S. world writers, artists, etc., like Paris in the 1920s. And Paris was famous, in the 20s. Like, it wasn't guys like Ernest Hemingway, writer, and all sorts of painters and artists. And he finishes off by saying, well, Paul, I've heard some big-time jazz about Mr. X / Bill Marks, who was the guy Vortex Comics that owned or owns Mr. X now. Published it back then. Bill Marks or whatever, but can't remember what. Is he expanding or has a movie deal or being sued or all three? How are you in your own little house? Do you have enough work? Pays well? Hope so. Don't hear from anyone up north at all, so fill me in, will you? All the best to you. Keep well, Alex. He was friendly. He was warm. He wasn't just completely this curmudgeon. You just hear those things cherry-picked out. He definitely had his moments. But you can see here, there is a warmth and friendliness. He's asking me about my own little house, because personally, and this is 88, freelance artist, I was 29. I had bought a house on my own in a section of Toronto and was trying to kind of, pay for that and build up and all that good stuff. I had the little office down here at Mowat Avenue, like I said, which was downtown. Used to commute. And so, he was simpatico to that. He was sympathetic. He understood it because he had lived that life. He had worked hard, gone here and there, had all sorts of adventures, as you do when you embrace the freelance life. And, we kept in touch. And there's more letters and postcards to come, like I've got all these, I've got a note to myself here, scanned, because some of these I scanned, but I haven't read them. And then there's like my letters here. I wrote him letters, and then he wrote me answers. I printed out some of my letters. I saved them. And those will be future episodes. Some of which are the letters, unfortunately, are kind of cringy. Youthful me writing to my art hero, so they're a little bit too adoring and formal and stiff and cringy, but hey, what the hell, what's the internet for if not to reveal all, let's say. Anyway, like I said, on a nice rainy night, I can hear the rain pattering down outside. I hope you enjoyed that. It's about 15 minutes spent with genius artist Alex Toth, and keep drawing. Don't ever quit. If you love it, keep drawing. And thanks for listening. Do all the great stuff, the usual patter at the end, the pitch, the closer. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll try and answer all the comments I can and answer any questions, or even if you have requests or whatever for commentary about Alex or anything else like that. And particularly, it would be great if anybody who knew Alex and has postcards or direct knowledge of him, if you happen to come across this. I mean, you don't have to, but I'd love to hear from you, either in a comment or a message. I'm on Twit, under Rocket Fiction. You can find me pretty well everywhere there. All right. Thank you and good night.